retired senior pilot. Byron Bailey joins me live from Sydney, Australia. Thank you so much, Byron. I mean, our correspondent there, Andy, just explained that, this is an extremely busy runway. And I don't know how unusual this situation is, but to have so many military helicopters in such close proximity to an airport. What's your experience of that? Is that an unusual situation?
Yeah, it's quite common, actually. I'm a 30,000-hour former military, former airline pilot, still flying private jets. But it's obvious what happened here. The airliner coming from Wichita was under air traffic control, was flying an instrument approach to the long runway, 01, which is one of the busiest runways in America. And he was asked to sidestep right to land on the shorter runway, runway 33. And he was doing that, and he had completed the turn. He was at about an altitude of 130 meters at this stage. And the pilots would have been looking ahead at the runway. They were exactly where they were supposed to be, concentrating on their landing. The helicopter, meanwhile, was coming, we call it a chopper, actually. The chopper was coming from the right. It had been on a different frequency, and it had been cleared by air traffic control. It had been instructed to pass behind, but first, air traffic had ascertained from the pilot of the chopper, can you see the regional jet? And the response was, yes, we can see it. And the air traffic control said, well, pass behind. Now, helicopters are flying at night, low level, purely heads up visually, whereas airliners are flying on instruments. So it's very difficult at night. I've flown in New York and LAX, Chicago, etc. at night, and the lights are just incredible. You can't see any sort of lights of an aeroplane. And I would just think that the helicopter guys, they got a bit confused, and I'm afraid it was not the pilots of the regional jet to blame in any way, nor air traffic control. They were just doing the standard procedure of allowing the chopper below 400 feet to cross the Potomac. But the blame must go purely with the military helicopter, I'm afraid. A very tragic situation.
And we've had it confirmed, Byron, that this was a training exercise. This chopper's come out of Fort Belvoir, which is about 15 miles away from the airport, and this was a training exercise, so we don't know for sure, but it's quite possible this was a trainee, presumably with a very experienced instructor at their side. How do you feel about the fact doing training exercises so close to a public airport like this? And the dangers seem fairly obvious.
Well, they've been doing it for years and years like this. It was nothing new. But military, you tend to operate under a negative control where the pilot takes more responsibility for the separation, whereas civilian aircraft is very strictly controlled by air traffic control. Some people have said, well, what about the traffic collision avoidance system? Well, the accident occurred below 400 feet. And TCAS, as it's known, the collision avoidance system, doesn't work below 1,000 feet. It's inhibited because it doesn't want a pilot to obey a command of descend and cause a crash. Yeah, it's they've been doing this for years. They're just going to have to tighten
Byron,
up.
as I understand it, the helicopter's much more easy to manoeuvre at short notice, and with an experienced instructor in the helicopter, they can take control, as I'm told, very, very quickly.
Exactly right.
So,
yeah,
wouldn't it have been not so difficult for an experienced instructor to have seen the plane and to be able to get them out of the line of danger quite quickly?
well, that's the question. Why weren't they heads up and looking? I mean, they said they could see the regional jet. It appears then they concentrated on something else and didn't reacquire it. Yeah, not good at all. The blame is purely on the military guys, I'm afraid. Very sad.
Byron, I greatly appreciate you coming on and giving us the benefit of your experience. Much appreciated. Byron Bailey is my guest, who's a senior pilot joining me from Sydney, Australia there.